Welcome back. It is time for the sixth installment of Avril Crump and her amazing clones. And the entire kitty club is here except Leonardo because he's getting ready for his big performance doing the weather in the morning message. And Wolfie is here too. Okay, so when we left off, the clones had been discovered by Dr. Weatherby, and he was going to take them all and report them to the board and report Avril to the board. And Avril protected them and got in a big scuffle with Dr. Weatherby, and they both got knocked out. And while the clones ran and escaped into a dumpster. And then Dr. Sedepta called somebody. We don't know who she's calling yet, but she said, "Come get Avril and Dr. Weatherby before they wake up." So now we're going to see what happened with the clones. Chapter 6 is called The Merry Traveler's Rest. The night air was getting chillier by the minute. The road that had led the clones away from Leviticus Laboratories did not seem to lead anywhere. It was simply going downhill. They were trudging down a deserted country lane with open fields on either side. With no hedges to protect them, the wind was gathering speed and stung their hands and faces. It was freezing cold and they were getting nowhere. Worst of all, a small icicle had begun to take shape on the end of Bonaparte's nose. "We've been walking for hours," Augustus whined. "Correction." Eddie stuffed her blue-tipped fingers into her pockets. An inhospitable fog lay like a thin and stained blanket over the valley into which they were descending. "We've been walking for hours. You've been carried since you decided walking disagreed with you." Bonaparte stopped the dirge-like tune he had been humming for the last hour and spoke before Augustus could. "Oh, no, Miss Eddy. 'Twas a selfless act on the part of Mr. Dog. He saw how I did shiver and sought to warm me." To prove his point, Bonaparte pulled open the lapel of his red coat where Augustus was snuggled. The banana peel still adorned his head. He gave Eddie a reproachful look. "You see," he said, "Boney understands." "Here, Miss Eddy," Bonaparte spoke warmly, eager to keep his friends happy. "Have thee a nibble of this." He handed her the withered banana peel from Augustus's head. "Hey, how long has that been on my head?" "For about as long as you've selflessly been keeping Boney warm," said Eddie. "Now, let's keep our eyes peeled. We have to find somewhere to sleep." She was starting to feel very alone. Bonaparte and Augustus seemed oblivious to the danger they were in, but she was frightened and unable to show it. Now that they were separated from Avril, Eddie felt like she was responsible for the other two, and that it was up to her to find shelter. They could not walk all night. "A light! Miss Eddy! I do see a light!" Bonaparte's long and spindly finger was pointing ahead through the thick fog. Sure enough, now that they were getting closer, Eddie could see a light too. More than one light, a cluster. "It must be a town in the valley. Come on." "I knew that banana peel was there all along," Augustus muttered as they put on a burst of speed. "I was simply humoring you. Plus, it happened to look rather fetching on me. I have the natural style, you see, to carry off the fruit peel look in a way that others never could." The town was not as far away as it looked through the disorienting fog, and within minutes the clones were hurrying past a road sign, welcoming them to Retchford-on-the-Reek and advising them to drive carefully. "This is where Avril said she lives, do you remember?" Eddie could hardly believe they were actually having a stroke of luck. "Oh, this is wonderful. I'm sure we can find somewhere warm to sleep, and then we'll track down Avril in the morning." However, finding a place to stay began to look tricky as they continued along the gloomy, lamp-lit, tree-lined road into Retchford. Rambling old houses loomed out of the fog, but not a single light burned in their cracked windows, making Eddie lose the courage to knock on a door. Augustus peeped out of Bonaparte's jacket as they walked along the deserted street. "Look at this place. What a dump. I think we should keep going and find a more suitable town." "Who made you the boss anyway?" he demanded. "I'm not the boss, Gus," Eddie said. Her voice rose slightly. "I'm just trying to find us somewhere safe to sleep." "The name," Augustus said, "is Augustus, not Gus. Never Gus." Bonaparte suddenly stopped. A small side road led off to the right, while the main road stretched off ahead of them into the darkness. "Which way, Miss Eddie?" Eddie peered down the side road. It was hard to see very far with the fog clouding over the street lights, but the houses here looked smaller, neater, and more lived in. As a patch of fog cleared for a moment, she suddenly saw that one of the lights was not on a street lamp at all. It shone out of the upstairs window of the second little house on the right. Moving closer, Eddie noticed the rusty sign suspended by the front door. It creaked as it swung to and fro. "The Merry Traveler's Rest," Eddie read. "Well, that's a nice name." "What else does it say?" Augustus demanded. "I could read it myself if I wanted," he added hastily. "Having the DNA of Shakespeare and all that, it's just this fog." "Bed and breakfast," Eddie continued. "All welcome." "This is perfect." She moved closer to the sign to read the smaller lettering under a telephone number. "No salesmen, actors, little boys, canaries, amorous young couples, beards, Manchester United fans, poets, ignoramuses, or coffee drinkers." In red paint, someone had added, "or blithering idiots," in a violent scrawl. "Well," Eddie said, "since we are none of those things, I think, there shouldn't be a problem." "Surely there's somewhere else to stay," Augustus said rather nervously. "I'm not at all sure Boney isn't a Manchester United fan, whatever that is." Eddie thought for a moment. The night was getting colder by the second, and the icicle on Bonaparte's nose was growing rapidly. They would have to take a risk. She marched forward and rang the bell. Bonaparte's voice filled the ensuing silence. "I wish it said bed and stew." Just then, the front door was flung open. A bright light shone in the clones' faces. "What?" The light moved sharply from Eddie to Bonaparte and back again. It was so dazzling that its owner's face could not be seen. Good evening," said Eddie. "We are sorry to disturb you, but my uncle and I and our dog are looking for a place to stay for the night." "What sort of dog?" snapped the voice. "A talking one," Bonaparte said, followed quickly by an "ouch" as Eddie kicked him in the ankle. "A Torquemine. It's a rare Asian breed, guard dog to the emperors of Japan." Eddie bit her lip. Even to her ears it sounded pathetic, but she mustn't reveal anything, especially not to a complete stranger. Avril had said enough about human cloning for her to realize how dangerous that could be. "Can we come in?" The light was lowered as the owner of the bed and breakfast stepped closer. Now that they were not being dazzled, the clones saw a wild-haired, scowling man wearing yellow pajamas decorated with bright green frogs. He scrutinized Eddie, then stared at Augustus for a long moment. "A Torquemine, you say?" Eddie swallowed. "Well, you may not have heard of them. They're extremely rare." "The dog can stay." The strange man snatched Augustus out of Bonaparte's arms. "A Torquemine is just the sort of guest this place needs. As for the pair of you, the sign is perfectly clear. No Manchester United fans." He glared at Eddie. "And absolutely no blithering idiots." With a jab in the direction of Bonaparte, the man turned and went inside. He was still holding Augustus. The door slammed. "Mr. Dog!" Bonaparte shrieked. Don't, Eddie said. Augustus might call back if he hears you. Let me handle this. She rapped on the door again. Go away. But, sir, Eddie's teeth were beginning to chatter with cold. You've got it wrong. We're not blithering idiots or Manchester United fans. We don't even know what Manchester United fans are. In that case, syrupy sweet, the man opened the door an inch and peered out at them. You must be ignoramuses. And goodness me, he waved his arm up at the sign. Looks like you're still not allowed in. The door slammed again. Okay, Eddie pounded on it. Open up this instant. You stole our dog, and unless you return him immediately, we're going straight to the police and have you charged with dog napping. Huzzah! Bonaparte added. 'Tis terribly exciting. Just get lost, snapped the man. There's no room for the likes of you in this establishment. Good thing, too, came Augustus's muffled voice. There was silence. Then the door flew open. The man stared at them. Who said that? Glaring at Augustus, who was looking sheepishly, Eddie considered her options. Pretend the man was hearing things, claim to be a world-famous ventriloquist, stomp on his toes, grab Augustus and run. The dog can talk. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. He's not my uncle. I'm not his niece. My name's Eddie, and he's Bonaparte. The dog's Augustus. We're clones from Leviticus Laboratories. Something went wrong, and we appeared out of thin air. We're fleeing from a maniac who wants to destroy us. Our lives are in danger, she continued, and we've only been alive for a few hours. Very slowly, millimeter by millimeter, the man's jaw dropped. Prithee, Bonaparte said, return, Mr. Dog, and we shall never trouble thee more. Jaw still hanging, the man turned to gaze at Augustus, who was warming himself by the fire. A talking dog, he managed, and a Torquemada at that. Incredible. He still hasn't caught on to the fact that she said Torquemada to cover up a talking one. Please, Eddie said. She felt close to tears. It's very cold. We have to find somewhere else to stay. Leviticus, you say? And you're running away? The man looked thoughtful for a moment. Then he smiled. His face crinkled into comfortable lines. You can't start wandering around town at this hour. Besides, does it say no clones anywhere on that sign? Well, no, but... So come on in out of the cold. We can't stand about gossiping all night. My name's Lionel, by the way. Now I've got a bit of stew inside that I think you'll enjoy. With a whimper of delight, Bonaparte bounded through the open door. Thank you, Eddie blinked at the man. Now that someone was being nice to her, it was hard not to hold back tears of relief. This is very kind of you. Not at all. Anyone running from Leviticus Laboratories is welcome in my home. I've got a thing or two I could tell you about that outfit, he added. Now hurry on in. Anybody could be listening. He ushered Eddie inside and shut the door against the freezing night. We'll stop there for tonight. So, I wonder what's going to happen next. I wonder what Lionel's story is. Why is he so interested in Leviticus Laboratories? How come when they told him they were clones and the dog could talk and all that, he didn't get freaked out? He seemed to be rather happy about that. Interesting. All right. We'll see you next time.